make sure I remember to turn this off. Okay. Sub-Saharan Africa, obviously a major component of this time period was the slave trade coming over. Millions and millions of Africans being brought over against their will to the Americas without anything but their lives to go. Did I get them all? You're almost done. You got yours? Okay, good. When they came over, a very important component is that they kept a lot of cultural components from Africa. Write this down. It's the last bullet point there. They kept a lot of African components that they had been raised on and were able to transfer some of them even into very difficult lives as slaves in the Americas. One of the aspects is religion. Okay? One of the aspects is religion. In fact, you're going to have some African-type religious practices carry on in the Americas. For example, candomblé in Brazil, where so many Africans have been brought over into the Portuguese colony of Brazil. Candomblé, which incorporates lots of various different deities and so forth, is going to continue among Africans living in those areas. Voodoo sounds like voodoo. There's a reason. Voodoo will carry on in Haiti in the Caribbean, and that is a religion that is widely practiced in Haiti. Some of these religions very, very much similar in the respect to like the way that the African religions are with the multiple deities. And also, and this is very important, write this down, and I'll show you some visual examples. The emotional, physical component of it. The emotional, physical component. In other words, dance, music, drums, percussion, boom, 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 boom. One of the big things that Africans contribute by way of their religion and music and dance, and this will carry on in through and into the Americas. Even as you have some of the Africans are going to convert, write this down. What is the mainline religion of people, slave owners, the Europeans that own the slaves? What do you suppose? Christianity, yeah, Christianity. Catholicism, specifically in like the Spanish and Portuguese areas. Protestant variants among many of the Dutch as well as the English areas and so forth. So you're going to see that within Christianity. If you're like, well, this is a religion for the masters. Are slaves going to adopt Christianity? As it turns out, quite a few of them do. Because one of the components of Christianity that actually translates very well for poor slaves is the great, amazing person within Christianity is a man who was being treated very, very badly and was beaten and crucified. And so their slaves, many of them, are going to adapt and adopt that role of Jesus. And so you'll see that within Christianity. Okay? It is interesting if you were to look at some of the African nature of the religion. Some of them, it will be condemned as witchcraft. So, for example, you guys are familiar with the Salem witch trials. You're going to have an African, somebody from Jamaica, who is going to be teaching some of the girls up in Salem about some of the practices, and they're all going to get into a little bit of trouble because those are seen as witchcraft, as not a monotheistic belief system. So let me just play. You can explain all this and so forth. Here we've got some of the religious artifacts and so forth there. There's the voodoo image. But I'm going to, we'll get to this one just in a sec. Let me play a couple of different images. I'm going to play a little bit of a segment here. This is part of the candomblé religious ceremony in Brazil. And listen as they explain and just sort of like the feel of the tenor of it.
The actual sacrifice and offering takes place in open ground that symbolizes the African ancestral homeland from where the Afro-Brazilians were brought to Brazil as slaves. The slaves arrived in this new land bearing no worldly possessions, but they brought with them their culture, their music, and their religious beliefs. And they have fought hard over the centuries to preserve these precious belongings. Several centuries later, their descendants continue to commune with the gods and goddesses of the African motherland.
I'm going to pause it right here just to give you a little bit of a sense. One of the things, and I did have another one, another image, but they didn't have that and that and so forth. One of the interesting things sometimes when you have dance and drums and minute after minute, hour after hour even, of this ceremonial thing where you're dancing and so forth, and it's very, very physical, is that oftentimes then you will have then the arrival of a deity, or so is believed within the particular group that is practicing that religious observance. Scientists will sometimes come in and go, yes, I know they're having a religious experience because all of a sudden you're going to have all kinds of various different physical aspects. It's kind of like, have you guys run long distance? Any of you guys long distance runners? Do you ever get to a point where it's like you're so tired and you keep going, then all of a sudden you just get like this so-called runner's high? You ever had that? What is that like? Is it good? Yeah, it's kind of like your body is like kicking. I don't know what the things are, endorphins or whatever and so forth, but it's like just kicks in. It's sort of like this physiological reaction after a lot of physical. Then you have this kick in there and so forth. That's what scientists might say. Others would go, yeah, it's part of a religious experience. But one thing I want you to write down here, and this is a very interesting thing. When you talk about African contributions to the Americas, I would say that dance and music is a huge part of it, and a lot of it comes through the church, although many of it is going to continue on through other aspects. When people talk about American music, and they're thinking about jazz and rock and roll, are you relying mostly on the European contributions that gave birth to jazz and rock and roll and the blues? Not so much, say the historians. A lot of that comes up through the African components. And a lot of it goes back to when you look at what was going on in Africa. And many of these people, it's like they're taken over from one area in Africa and dropped off in another area in the Americas. No surprise that those people, even though they've lost their freedom, will continue those cultural practices, and dance and music are critical components. I just pull this one up because they keep changing on me. This is an example of a black gospel worship and praise. So this is within the Christian context. I just popped right in here after about 30 minutes. Music and dance and people in worship. This would be like modern America. Not a typical European style of Christian worship. This is very typical of many African American church experiences. Music, physical, dancing. One of the best examples I found of that was in a movie called The Color Purple. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this movie. It came out some time ago. It's got Oprah Winfrey in it. It's got Whoopi Goldberg early in their careers. And I'll preview this particular scene. They're at a honky-tonk, And one of the great singers there singing that day, the honky tonk, she's singing blues, which her daddy's not really happy because the blues is not in the Christian gospel tradition, but it sounds, it's from the same root. Her daddy is, of course, a pastor, and they haven't been talking to each other for a while. And they're within earshot of each other. So her daddy's got a Christian service going on, and he tells them to sing this particular song, and she hears it, and she stops singing her honky-tonk blues song, and she starts walking toward her daddy's church for an interesting encounter. Yeah, there's Oprah, there's Whoopi, the prodigal children. He hasn't talked to his daughter for a long time. African American church, music, very important. Dance, very important. There's competition in that neighborhood that day. They can't compete if she won't sing. She knows that song because she sang that song when she was in her daddy's choir, when she was a young girl. He's going to lose his business that day.
If I were you, I would say, yeah. Speak, Lord. Speak to me.
There goes the business. They're heading to church. Because the main act is heading to church. Hadn't seen her daddy in a long time. Uh-oh.
See, Daddy, sinners have soul too.
There. The father and daughter reunion. And there's still music. When you look at it's amazing when you look at the fabric of what will become the United States of America, which is what we're going to be focused on in our next unit. We got all kinds of different inputs. And one of the biggest cultural inputs is going to come from an amazing source, African slaves. Yeah, and I would say that the musical component is just huge there. So, there. Yeah, there's a lot more going on into that story as far as like what the heck is going on there, but that's a neat little side story. The Color Purple by Alice Walker. Next time we are going to wrap up by looking at all the global trade routes, and we'll look at what's going on in China with the Ming Dynasty. Oh my gosh, skip that. Zheng He, yes. And we'll get into the Japanese. If you guys, I'm trying to think of what's that on. Is it Netflix and so forth? They came out with a new thing on Japanese samurai. Oh my gosh. What's that? Not Cobra Kai, but it was like it actually covers the time period from about 300-400 years ago in Japan. It is bloody. Have you seen it? You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, it's like 4. I think there's like 4 in the series. Anyway, yeah. So we'll talk about Nobunaga and Hideyoshi and Ieyasu. Yes, that'll be next time. Okay. Good. Okay, oh, you got yours done? Good, thank you. All right, wipe her down, and yeah, we ended up in good time.
Did you do your